Nathan Cole sat quietly in the small observation room of the human exploration ship, as it drifted toward the great station in orbit around a strange blue-green planet. He had trained for years to speak new languages and learn alien customs, but nothing in his studies had prepared him for this meeting. The Seraph Empire was secretive, powerful, and very proud. Today, for the first time in human history, their queen would meet a human delegation. The ship's captain, Laura Bennett, reminded her team that they must follow every custom they had been told about. She spoke slowly, making sure everyone understood that the Serath considered direct eye contact with their queen a deep insult. Nathan nodded, but his mind wandered. He imagined what the queen might look like. Would she be like the beings in old stories, tall and terrifying? Or would she be small and graceful? The thought made him curious. When the ship docked with the orbital palace, the humans stepped into a long, bright hall. Tall windows showed the planet spinning far below. The walls shimmered with a metal that seemed alive, changing colors as they walked past. Serath guards lined the path, their armor covered in tiny moving lights. The humans were led to a vast chamber where Queen Valara waited. She sat on a high seat that seemed to grow out of the floor itself. A fine silver veil covered her face, and her robes flowed around her like liquid. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the palace's energy. Nathan felt a strange pull. His eyes lifted toward the queen. He knew the rule, but his curiosity won. He wanted to see what lay behind the veil. For a brief moment, he met her hidden gaze. It was only a flicker, but the air in the chamber seemed to tighten. Sound like a sharp wind passed through the room. The Serath guard stiffened. The queen's voice cut through the silence, calm but full of power. "How dare you gaze at me?" The words echoed off the walls, and the humans froze. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. He felt the eyes of everyone in the chamber on him. Captain Bennett stepped forward quickly, bowing her head. She spoke in a steady voice, explaining that Nathan had not meant to offend. That in human culture, looking at someone's face was a sign of respect and attention. The queen did not answer right away. She rose slowly, her robes whispering against the floor. Her tall, thin form moved with an elegance that made Nathan feel even smaller. She walked toward him, stopping just a few feet away. Though her veil still hid her face, Nathan felt the weight of her attention. Instead of ordering his removal, she gave a simple command in her own language. A guard stepped forward, placing a small band on Nathan's wrist. The metal felt warm, almost alive. The queen turned and returned to her seat. In the human translator's earpieces, her words were made clear. "He will stay here under watch. Let him learn why his gaze is dangerous." The meeting ended soon after, with the humans leaving the hall under the careful eyes of the Serath guards. As they walked back toward their quarters, Nathan felt both relief and fear. He had not been punished, but now he was bound by the queen's will. He had come to help open peaceful talks, but now he had become part of something far more personal and risky. That night, Nathan lay awake in the guest quarters of the Serath Palace. The ceiling above him glowed faintly like starlight. He thought about the sound of the queen's voice and the way the room had changed when he looked at her. He had broken a sacred rule in the first minutes of meeting her, and yet she had spared him. He could not tell if this was mercy, curiosity, or something else entirely. Far above the planet, the palace drifted in silent orbit. In the queen's private chambers, Valara sat alone, thinking about the human who had dared to look at her. She had seen many kinds of beings in her reign, but never one so unafraid of the rules. She wondered if he understood what his action might set in motion. Nathan woke to the quiet hum of the Serath Palace. The air felt different here, lighter, but full of a strange scent, like a mix of metal and flowers. Ash! A guard stood outside his door, watching him without a word. Captain Laura Bennett came to see him before the day's meeting. She spoke in a low voice, reminding him that the queen's patience had limits. If he wanted to avoid trouble, he would have to follow every custom and every instruction from now on. Nathan nodded, but his mind was still restless. He wanted to understand why looking at the queen was such a serious offense. In human culture, a glance meant little. But here it seemed to hold the weight of a dangerous act. The guards led Nathan and the human team back to the Great Hall. The Serath were already gathered, their shimmering robes moving like water. The queen sat on her high seat, her veil hiding her face as always. When the humans entered, the room went silent. Nathan could feel the eyes of the Seraph watching him more than the others. The Queen's voice broke the silence, calm but firm. She addressed Captain Bennett first, asking about the purpose of their visit. Bennett explained their wish for peaceful relations, trade and knowledge exchange. Velera listened without moving. When Bennett finished, the Queen turned her attention to Nathan. "You will stay in my court," she said through the translators. "You will learn our ways. If you wish to speak, you will do so only when allowed. You will watch but not claim what you see." Nathan bowed his head, unsure of what to say. He understood now that to them, sight was not simple. To look at something here was to take it into yourself, to make it yours in a way that could not be undone. Over the next days, Nathan's life changed. He was not allowed to leave the palace without guards. Every morning, he was brought to observe the Queen's court. He sat near the edge of the room, listening to her speak with her advisors. They discussed matters of the Empire distant wars, shifting trade routes, and the training of young Seraph leaders. Nathan said nothing, but his ears caught words and tones that told him more than the translators did. One afternoon, a Seraph scholar approached him. She wore the same veil as the Queen, though lighter in color. Her name was Lureen, and she had been told to teach Nathan about Serath customs. She explained the meaning of the gaze. In their history, showing one's face was a gift given only to those bound by deep trust or blood. To look without being invited was to steal that gift. Nathan listened carefully, trying to imagine a world where the eyes carried so much meaning. He began to see how dangerous his first act had been, and why the Queen had reacted as she did. Still, he wondered why she had not punished him. Lorene only said, "The Queen sees something in you. That can be a blessing, or it can be the start of your ruin." One evening, Nathan was summoned to a smaller chamber. The room was lit by soft blue light, and the air was warm. The Queen sat at a low table, her veil still in place. She invited him to sit across from her. For a long time, they spoke little. She asked about Earth, its oceans and forests. Nathan told her about the wide plains, the busy cities, and the changing seasons. She listened with interest, her head tilted slightly. "You speak of your world as if it belongs to all," she said at last. "In my empire, the land belongs to the crown, and the people serve it." Nathan thought about that and replied carefully. "On Earth, people believe the land is for everyone. We do not always live by that idea, but we try." The Queen was silent for a while, then rose to leave. As she walked past him, she paused. "Perhaps that is why you looked at me," she said. "You do not see walls the way we do." When she was gone, Nathan sat in the quiet room, wondering what her words meant. He knew only one thing for certain. His time here was no longer just about diplomacy. It was becoming something far more personal and far more dangerous. Days turned into weeks, and Nathan's place in the Queen's court began to feel both like a gift and a cage. The Seraph Palace was beautiful, with walls that shimmered like liquid glass and gardens that floated in the air without soil. Yet he was never truly free. Two guards followed him everywhere, silent as shadows, making sure he did not stray or break another custom. Lorene continued to teach him. She explained the meanings behind the colors of the Seruth robes, the way each gesture spoke of respect or challenge, and how silence could carry more weight than speech. Nathan listened carefully, taking notes in a small tablet. Each lesson gave him a new way to see their world. He began to notice the patterns in the Queen's movements, the way she spoke less when she was displeased and asked longer questions when she was curious. One morning, Nathan was invited to join the Queen in the archives. This was a place few outsiders had ever seen. The room was vast, with tall shelves of crystal that glowed softly. Within each shelf were thin sheets of living light, holding the recorded history of the Serath. The Queen walked slowly, her hand brushing along the edge of a shelf as if touching an old friend. "These are the voices of my people," she said through the translators. "Every triumph, every sorrow, every choice we have made is here. To see them is to understand who we are." Nathan asked if he might learn from them. The Queen did not answer right away. Then she picked one glowing sheet and held it between them. It showed a scene of two Serath leaders meeting in a garden, their faces uncovered. "They were bound by trust," she said. "They built an alliance that lasted a century. To show the face is to open the heart." You human took that without asking. He wanted to defend himself, but he stayed quiet, remembering Lurian's lessons. After a moment, the queen placed the sheet back in the shelf. "Still, you are here," she said. "That is why I wish to know if there is more to your people than hunger for the stars." From that day, she began to ask him about human ideas. She wanted to know why humans built art that served no purpose but beauty, why they wrote stories about loss, and why they reached for places beyond their home world. Nathan tried to answer simply. "We want to understand," he said once, "even things that cannot be owned." The queen seemed to think about his words for a long time. In the following days, she allowed him to see more of the palace. He walked through the zero-gravity gardens, where flowers grew in perfect spheres, their colors changing as they floated. He stood in a chamber where light moved like water, creating shapes that shifted with sound. These moments felt like glimpses into a secret world, but not everyone in the court was pleased. Nathan noticed the way some Serath looked at him with cold eyes. He overheard whispers when he passed. Lurin warned him that there were those who believed the queen was too curious about humans, that her interest in him was dangerous. Some fear changed, she said. They would rather keep the walls high. One evening, as Nathan was leaving the gardens, a young Serath courtier stopped him. The courtier's voice was polite, but the words were sharp. "The queen may find you interesting, human, but remember, this interest fades. When it does, you will be sent away, or worse." Nathan did not reply. He had learned that some words were better left unanswered. Still, the warning stayed with him. That night, he stood at the balcony of his quarters, looking at the planet below. Its clouds swirled in colors he had never seen on Earth. He thought about how much he had learned, and how much more he wanted to understand. The queen had shown him pieces of her world, but there were walls he still could not cross. Far away, in her own chambers, Valara looked out over the same view. She thought about the human's questions and his quiet way of listening. In him, she saw something rare, a gaze that had broken the rules, yet had not been driven by greed. Quite she wondered if that might one day be worth the risk of lowering the veil. The days in the Serath Palace began to carry a strange rhythm for Nathan. Each morning, he attended the queen's court, listening to debates and watching the flow of power between her and her advisors. In the afternoons, he studied with Lurinor, walked the gardens under guard. At night, he often lay awake, thinking about the quiet moments when the queen asked him questions that felt more personal than political. But under the calm surface, tension was growing. Nathan could feel it in the sharp looks from certain members of the court, and in the way conversations would stop when he entered a room. Even some of the guards seemed uneasy around him now. Lyring told him there were whispers of discontent, of people saying the queen had let a foreigner into her trust too quickly. One evening, Nathan was summoned to a grand gathering in the Hall of Currents. The space was filled with swirling streams of light that moved like water, casting shifting colors over the faces of the guests. Serath nobles stood in small circles, speaking in low tones. The queen entered to soft music, her robes glimmering like the stars outside the palace windows. Nathan stayed near the edge of the hall, watching the crowd. He could feel the eyes on him, some curious, others cold. Lorene approached and quietly told him to be careful. "Not all who smile at you are your friends," she warned. The queen spoke to the assembly about trade, unity, and the need to see beyond the old borders of the empire. Nathan noticed how some in the room seemed pleased, while others exchanged hard glances. As the evening went on, servants moved among the guests with trays of crystal cups. Nathan accepted one, but before he could drink, a sudden tremor shook the floor. The tremor became a deep rumble. From above, part of the hall's ceiling cracked, sending shards of glowing crystal down toward the crowd. Shouts filled the air as people rushed to escape the falling debris. Nathan's eyes went to the queen. She was standing in the open, directly beneath a large breaking section of the ceiling. Without thinking, Nathan ran forward. He grabbed her arm and pulled her away just as the crystal structure crashed to the floor where she had stood. The impact sent a wave of light through the hall, knocking over tables and scattering guests. Guards rushed in, surrounding the queen and Nathan. When the danger passed, Valara stood still for a long moment. Then, in a motion that drew every gaze in the hall, she reached up and lowered her veil. For the first time, Nathan saw her face. Her features were sharp and graceful, her eyes bright like polished stone. She met his gaze without anger, only silence. Gasps moved through the room. The act was more than gratitude. It was a public statement. In Sereth tradition, showing the face to someone outside the bloodline was a rare and powerful sign of trust. Many in the room looked shocked, others unsettled. The queen spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the hall. This human has risked himself to protect the crown. Let it be known that he stands under my shield. Nathan felt the weight of those words. It was a protection, but also a mark that would make him even more of a target for those who already disliked him. Later, in the quiet of a private chamber, the queen looked at him closely. "You acted without thought," she said. "Why?" Nathan shrugged slightly. "Because you were in danger. On Earth, you don't stop to think in moments like that, you just act." The queen seemed to consider this, then nodded. "Perhaps that is why I keep you here." Outside the palace, the news of the incident spread quickly. In the corridors of power, some whispered that the queen's trust in the human had gone too far. Others wondered if the human might change the empire itself. In his quarters that night, Nathan stared at the ceiling. Remembering the weight of her arm when he pulled her to safety, and the look in her eyes when she removed the veil, he knew something had shifted between them, but whether it would lead to peace or disaster, he could not tell. The palace felt different after the night of the falling crystal. Nathan noticed more guards in the halls and fewer friendly faces in the court. Some Sereth still looked at him with open curiosity, but others now avoided his gaze, understood that saving the queen's life had made him important to her, and that was not something all in the empire wanted. The queen herself seemed unchanged in her duties, but Nathan sensed a new watchfulness in her. She spoke to him more often, asking his thoughts about trade, alliances, and the nature of trust. Nathan answered honestly, knowing that she valued his perspective, even if it was different from her own. One morning, Captain Bennett came to see him. She told him that the human mission was being recalled to Earth. The diplomats had done their work, and the agreement with the Sereth was signed. The ship would leave in 2 days. Nathan felt a mix of relief and regret. Part of him longed for home, for familiar skies and air that smelled like rain. But another part of him knew that leaving meant breaking a strange and growing connection with the queen. That evening, the queen called him to her private chambers. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the palace systems. She was standing by the wide window, looking out at the swirling colors of the planet below. For a moment, neither spoke. "So," she said at last, "you will leave." Nathan nodded. "The mission is complete. They want me to return." The queen turned to face him, her veil in place. "And what do you want?" He hesitated. "I want peace between our people. I want you to know that not all humans see the stars as something to take." Her head tilted slightly. "And yet you took my gaze." Nathan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I also gave you mine." For a long time, the queen was silent. Then slowly, she reached up and lowered her veil again. Her eyes met his, steady and unguarded. "When you first looked at me, I felt it as a theft," she said. "Now, it feels like trust." Nathan felt a weight lift from him at those words. "Then I will carry that trust with me," he said. The queen stepped closer. "If you speak of me to your people, speak with truth. Tell them we are not only warriors or rulers. Tell them we are more." "I will," Nathan promised. The next day, as the human ship prepared to depart, the queen stood at the docking bay with her court. Her veil was drawn again, but her presence was unmistakably warm. She raised her hand in a gesture of farewell, and Nathan returned it before stepping aboard. As the ship drifted away from the palace, Nathan watched through the viewing port. The Sereth fleet was positioned around the station, their hulls lit in patterns of blue and silver. Slowly, the ships began to flash their lights in a rhythm that the translators identified as a sign of honor and respect. Captain Bennett glanced at Nathan. "I think they like you," she said. Nathan gave a small smile. Or maybe they're curious. Hours later, as the Sereth system faded into the distance, Nathan sat in his small cabin and thought about the journey. I thought about the danger, the lessons, and the strange bond that had formed between him and the queen. A single moment of breaking a rule had led to something no one had expected, a bridge between two worlds. On the Sereth station, Queen Valara returned to her private chambers. She looked once at the place where the human had stood, then turned to face the planet below. She knew that not everyone in her empire approved of her choice to trust him. But she also knew that sometimes change began with a single step, and sometimes with a single glance. Far apart in the vastness of space, both human and queen carried the memory of that first forbidden gaze. Knowing it had altered the path of two civilizations forever,